There's nothing out there that quite matches the feeling of watching one of your most beloved characters wilt away before your eyes. No matter how lovable, sweet, or well-meaning a character is, it won't save them from suffering a horrible or unnecessary death. So let's all be a bit heartbroken together. I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are 10 beloved TV characters who deserved better. 10. Bill, Killing Eve. In just a couple of episodes, Killing Eve's audience had made a great connection with Bill, a lovable family man and the equalizer to Eve's chaos. He was more than just a colleague to Eve. Their rapport showed that they were incredibly close, and he may well have been the very best friend she had. So when he was unceremoniously murdered in the series' 3rd episode, it hurt. In what remains one of the series' most tense and heart-wrenching scenes, Bill is stalked and stabbed to death in a packed nightclub. Before Eve can reach him, the psychopathic villanelle repeatedly knifes him, leaving him bleeding out on the floor amongst the crowds. It was kind of impossible to not be rooting for Bill. If it weren't for Eve, he wouldn't even have been on the mission that got him killed. But at the end of the day, he would have done anything for her. Bill deserved better, not only because he was a good guy, but also, kind of selfishly, because we wanted to see more of him and Eve's relationship play out in the series. 9. ANDREA CANTILLO, Breaking Bad. Frankly, after all she'd been through and all she was doing to provide for herself and her son, Andrea got done so dirty and deserved so much better. In a show like Breaking Bad, nobody is without their flaws, but Andrea really was just trying her best. She was a recovering addict hoping to provide her son a better future than what she got herself. And after using money from Jesse to move to a nicer neighborhood, things looked like they could be on the up for her. Unfortunately, she would never get to see her son grow up, as she was killed by gang member and meth cook Todd Alquist. Another thing was that her death was entirely meaningless, being executed simply as a punishment for Jesse's trespasses. It's so sad because in the end her death meant nothing to her executioner. He only saw her as an object to punish someone else. After all the suffering she'd faced, she was holding on to hope for a better future, and that was robbed from her too. Honestly, it was all just super bleak. 8. NAIROBI, Money Heist. NAIROBI was easily one of the most likeable characters amongst Money Heist's varied cast of weirdos. Even after surviving a gunshot to the chest, a long coma, and all the other perils of the heists, NAIROBI was eventually killed by a point-blank shot to the head. Her death came seemingly out of nowhere. Being held hostage by the bank's former head of security, NAIROBI's about to be set free during successful negotiations when he changes his mind and shoots her in the head. It was completely unprovoked and came as an incredible shock, and the suddenness of it was awful considering she'd been through so much already. Her life had been far from simple, and she was a valuable asset to the team with her level head and attention to detail, and her presence is missed as much by her fellow characters as it is by her adoring fans. 7. Bobby, The Sopranos. As far as mobsters go, Bobby was about as good as they get. He worked his way up from the bottom of the pile to being one of Tony's main guys, all whilst managing to never kill a soul. Dealing with the grief of losing his wife, to whom, unlike most of the others, he was actually faithful, as well as the pressure of working his way up through the mob, Bobby managed to conduct himself with a certain level of integrity, despite being the butt of nearly every joke. He was unlike others in his crew in that he was fairly even-tempered, even quite quiet. I mean, there are plenty of despicable, irredeemable gangster characters out there, but for the most part, Bobby appeared to be a respectable bloke who genuinely cared for people. It was crushing then that in the end he was just gunned down by rival mobsters. Just like that, it all came to an end for Bobby as he looked around for a new model train. No one that spends their spare time looking at model trains deserves a death like that, or in fact to be treated the way he was by Tony. Yeah, old Bobby got it bad. 6. Noah, The Walking Dead. In classic Walking Dead style, we could tell that Noah was done for as soon as he started receiving a bit more airtime. Oh, we're actually getting to know him and finding out what his hopes for the future are, we thought. Yep, he's definitely a goner. Noah had been through a lot, as we would expect from anyone that survives the zombie apocalypse. He helped Beth during her time at the hospital, assimilated into the central crew, and expressed interest in helping expand and improve Alexandria. He had genuine promise for the future, and so, of course, he then had to die. Sadly, the way in which he went on to die was incredibly horrible, as another character used him to save their own ass. In one of the most haunting death scenes the series has to offer, we had to watch as Noah was trapped in a revolving glass door and torn apart by a horde of walkers. Not only was this traumatizing for Glenn, who could do nothing to stop it, but also for those of us in the audience who'd become very attached to this lovable, lanky lad. 5. MISSANDEI, Game of Thrones. Missandei was the right-hand assistant to series favourite Daenerys Targaryen. A former slave, she achieved her long-deserved freedom and went on to prove her smarts and likability time and time again. Paired with loyal soldier Grey Worm, the two made a great couple. Despite not being necessarily central cast members, they were certainly a memorable duo, and they ranked pretty high in many fans' favourite character lists. It was incredibly sad then to see her executed on Cersei's command right in front of both her best friend and boss Daenerys and the love of her life, Grey Worm. After Euron attacked Dany's fleet, Missandei was captured and brought to Cersei. In an attempt to goad Dany into rash action that would undermine her work so far, Cersei ordered Missandei's execution by beheading, having the Mountain chop her atop the wall of King's Landing and leaving her head and body to fall to the ground below. Missandei was an intelligent, patient and interesting character. Frankly, she was a much better person than Dany ever was. Her death sparked outrage from fans who felt it unnecessary and meaningless. And honestly, I would agree. 4. Asher. How to Get Away with Murder. Not only did Asher provide frequent comic relief in what was otherwise a somewhat miserable show, he really was also a good guy at heart despite some of his more questionable decisions. Yes, he did hit a woman with his car on purpose, but he did feel really bad about it, and in his defense, she also sucked. Having grown up with immense privilege, all Asher ever wanted was to make his family proud. Following his father's death, his mother practically disowned him, and he had to sink all his energy into making his own family of friends. He was a doting boyfriend, a loving mate, and later, a desperate boy who just wanted his family to come together again. So yes, going to the police and trying to grass on his friends was a bit shady of him, but they were all in a really impossible situation. And in fairness, some of his friends were really bad people. For his death to come at the hands of a crooked agent, bashing his head in and leaving him bleeding out on the floor outside his apartment was heartbreaking. All he ever wanted was to do the right thing for the people he loved. And yeah, he sure messed it up a few times, but he didn't deserve that. 3. JI-YEONG. Squid Game. Initially quiet and seemingly unfazed by it all, Squid Game's JI-YEONG didn't only deserve a better death, but a better life too. After first joining our crew for Tug of War, we properly got to know her backstory as she played against fan favourite Kang Se-byuk in a deadly game of marbles. After having killed her abusive father, JI-YEONG went to prison for a long time, and on her release she realised that she had nothing. She had no friends, no family, nowhere to go and nothing to do. She joined the Squid Game because she had no other option. When it came to picking a winner for the marble game, JI-YEONG sacrificed herself so that Se-byuk could get back to her brother and live a happy life. She mused about going to an island together and drinking cocktails, a future she knew was never going to happen. As she prepared to die, her face was wet with tears, but she smiled and stated that it was an honour to have been Se-byuk's partner. And if anyone claims that they could watch this scene without just bawling their eyes out, then they're absolutely heartless. 2. POUSSEY Washington. Orange is the New Black. Calling POUSSEY a fan favourite seems like an understatement. She was a shining light in the show, a complex and beautiful character played by an incredibly talented actress. Her death in season 4 was not only enormously poignant, but also genuinely soul-crushing. POUSSEY was killed by a prison guard who knelt on her neck, suffocating her to death. Her body was then left on the floor for a whole day before the coroner came. In the wake of her death, it's revealed that she was in prison for a non-violent drug offence, one of America's most popular incarceration techniques. We were all rooting for her in every possible way, and her relationship with Brooke was really starting to blossom, and then she had that all dashed away from her in a way that felt way too close to home for audiences all over the world. Samira Wiley's incredible performance of this role and the tragic end sparked some very important conversations about police brutality and racial violence in audience members that otherwise would have ignored the issue. So good on Samira Wiley, she made us fall in love with her and then she broke our hearts. 1. DANI. The Haunting of Bly Manor. The Haunting of Bly Manor was really just one big, beautiful gay love story hiding under the guise of a supernatural horror show. But however nice it was to see a gay romance be central in a major series, we can't have it all, as Bly Manor fell at the final hurdle in LGBT tropes, and that is that they buried the gays. It's an unspoken rule in film and TV that gay characters can never have a happy ending. There was a period where we got to see the years play out, where Dani and Jamie lived their happily ever after, opening a florist, living in their apartment, even getting fake married. It was genuinely delightful and it warmed my little heart to the point of combustion. Of course, this could never last though. as eventually the inevitable happens and Dani is called upon a final time by the lady in the lake. Jamie finds out just too late that Dani has taken her final trip to Bly, arriving and diving frantically into the water to find her wife's dead body below the surface. Needless to say, this was crushing. We were so invested in their relationship, so in love with their love, and it was all dashed away in the end because we can't let two wives just live happy little lives. Sure, in the end they reunite as ghosts, but that's not the same. For once, just one time, could we please let a gay couple have a happy ending? And on that note, we've reached the end of this list of 10 beloved TV characters who deserved better. There are so many more out there, so let us know in the comments below which ones you would have added to this list. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. As always, I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.